Hey, everybody, welcome to Cloud Connect. I'm Grant, a Microsoft security specialist. We have Ryan. Ryan, you want to say hi?
Yeah, hi everyone. Ryan. I'm a customer success account manager on the unified side of Microsoft.
And then we have Darien on the line today. Darien, you want to introduce yourself quick?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Darien Freedman. I'm a technology specialist here on the modern work side of the house. So, touch on everything security, compliance, identity, and device management. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Darien. So yeah, you brought it up, and really the point of today's conversation is data classification, data governance, really kind of specifically inside of a generative AI fueled ecosystem. Now, Darian, I know you, myself, Ryan, we've all worked together, on the Microsoft side for many years. We've had conversations with customers around, data classification and labeling, the importance of knowing, what types of data are in your environment. Is it secured, obviously safe, protected, classified? Do we know where the confidential information maybe lives? But I think that with generative AI, this kind of steps it up another level of importance, and why this is something that I think historically folks have maybe thought about kind of later on in the life cycle. So, Darian, maybe just also provide a little bit of additional context, clarity for your previous roles at Microsoft and what you did around this specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So, prior to the current role that I'm in, I was actually a consultant over in Microsoft Consulting Services, where I was helping customers deploy our various compliance solutions. A lot of those kind of falling under the information protection and governance realm. So, everything data classification, everything data loss prevention, everything kind of in that realm. And actually, I had the pleasure of working with a couple of different customers. And there's one customer in particular that I kind of wanted to bring up today. That is a spice manufacturer. So, with data classification, we can, specify the types of sensitive information that we're looking for in the environment. But with this particular customer, they weren't looking for your traditional sensitive information types like PII, PHI, PCI, everything like that. What they were looking to do was protect their spice formulas. They had various recipes that they needed to protect. So it was a very interesting use case to kind of build out those custom sensitive information types and allow them to not only identify spice recipes, but to also classify those accordingly to prevent data exfiltration. So yeah, really cool opportunity working with
Darian,
that
how many years have I worked with you and you've never told me that story?
customer. Yeah, it's been quite a few years now, but that's just one of the few that I've been working with.
Did
Uh,
you steal that information before you left? Because I want to know what secret spice recipes you have that you're
So
also
I
not
actually
sharing. But
Yeah, I actually did not actually get to see any of the recipes. I just kind of helped them show them how to build it out and how to do all the regular expressions and the keyword dictionaries and everything to kind of detect those custom sets of information types. But yeah, definitely a fun project. Did it over the span of a couple of months, and yeah, really awesome because it's a spice company. I have some of their spices in my cabinet right now, so it was kind of cool to work that closely to home.
that is.
now I know Grant mentioned generative AI, and I think that's obviously a very hot topic right now. Um, I view this as also a good opportunity for if someone is involved in data governance at an organization, that could also be sort of a lever they use to try to get the ball rolling for the organization to get it serious about data management and protection, right? Because I know we talked to a lot of executives who are excited about Copilot and don't necessarily realize that the data that Copilot touches may not be classified properly, right? Stuff may not be secured in a way that's actually going to keep it safe once it's in Copilot. And I don't mean from outside people. I mean from people inside your organization stumbling upon something they maybe shouldn't see. So I guess taking it away from how does something like Copilot use it, um, what would you say to someone who sees this as a chance to start that journey, right? Using the threat of Copilot, let's say, to get people interested and sort of motivated to start really taking data classification seriously.
Yeah, so a lot of my customers that I talk to are focused primarily on security, so email security, endpoint security. Security is kind of the forefront,
Mhm.
but a lot of customers don't really prioritize this data security, which is what we're talking about right now. And it's kind of a four-step process for kind of walking through data classification. So first off is understanding your data, where it kind of sits in the environment today. Understanding the total sprawl. Is it stored in your on-prem servers? Is it in Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, etc.? So understanding the total amount of data and the breadth of data. Then the next step would be to actually classifying that data. And that is easier said than done, because the first step is the organization needs to define a data classification taxonomy. So what kinds of data fall under each bucket? What types of encryption or rights management do we want to put on specific types of data? How do we treat general data differently from highly confidential data? So that's kind of the first challenge is aligning with the different lines of business and understanding the types of data that they want to protect, where that information resides, the use cases for having people be able to access that data or do all the rights management accordingly. So that in itself is pretty challenging, building out the data classification. But then the next step is actually getting your end users to apply the sensitivity labels as necessary. And that's one of the biggest challenges that I've had with my customers who are on ME3 today. They have the ability to classify data, but that requires the manual intervention by your end users, doing the
Mhm.
adoption and change management, ramping them up on, where to find the sensitivity labels, how to apply them, what types of information go under each bucket. So as a result, there's a lot of room for end user error. And that's the beauty in when I talk to my customers who are currently on ME5, we have automatic data classification where the system could automatically identify these types of sensitive information and automatically apply the label on behalf of your end users. So once you kind of get to this level of automation where the system is automatically doing things for you, that really reduces the gap and the spread of potential exfiltration or people kind of messing up and mislabeling content. So that's kind of the first part of this whole information protection strategy. And then after that, then you have other services like data loss prevention, kind of as a catch-all be-all in case any information is not classified accordingly. So kind of naturally ties in with everything else, and the system makes it really easy for us to be able to protect this information, which naturally segues into our conversation around generative AI. With Copilot being able to access all the information across the environment, being able to aggregate metadata on these documents, you want to make sure that these documents are protected and that the scope of what the generative AI is able to touch is within your purview and what you expect from your organization.
Yeah,
I'll say good pun there with purview, by the way.
I think the thing that like folks have to realize is, whatever's been done in the past or whatever hasn't been done, if we haven't had a data classification strategy, we haven't identified where our potentially sensitive information lives, it requires end users in the organization to do a lot of digging, or maybe just stumble upon things that they shouldn't have access to. And where, of course, it gets really interesting when you implement a generative AI tool such as Copilot for M365, is now an end user can simply ask a generic prompt, hey, I want to learn more about XYZ. And if all of a sudden that's, maybe what we would consider more classified information, or, internal things that maybe that person shouldn't even have access to, it surfaces it very easily to them. So I don't think it's like we don't want to use it, of course, as a scare tactic. It's just like, hey, this stuff is really important. If you're not talking about it today, if you're not planning for it, what Darien, mentioned, like there's definitely steps you're going to have to take of trying to figure out, really what's important, what do we need to protect, and keep maybe sanctioned, in different parts of the organization. But Darien, you mentioned about M365, E3, G3, right, for our government customers are going to have the manual labeling of the data. And then you mentioned the step up, as part of that E5, G5 suite is going to have the automatic classification. Makes sense, I think, from like hey, I'm creating content status. and it's going to do it for me. How about all that data, all that information that's currently who knows where in an organization? It's maybe in their M365 tenant. It's, in a file share on premise. It's in a database somewhere. Like, does Microsoft have a solution, or is there a way to like retroactively go back and take care of that stuff? Or what options do folks have there?
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of our automatic data classification, we can not only touch anything in Microsoft 365 across all of our cloud services, but to your point, we could also go back on-prem. I'll look for any like SMB file shares, anything kind of in that realm, and then retrospectively classify that data. And that's actually something that I talked about with a lot of my customers as I was kind of doing my consulting engagements is we don't only want to classify data moving forward, but it's equally as important, if not more important, to be able to go retrospectively and classify all of that data as well. So that's really beneficial because there are probably years or potentially decades of information that are currently unclassified, just sitting out there somewhere. Probably aren't being cleaned up by data lifecycle management. So it's important to go back and make sure all of those are classified accordingly.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I know I have one other thing to talk about specifically in regards to a webinar we have coming up about optimizing your environment for Copilot specifically. But before I talk about that, Ryan, was there any, previous use cases or things, maybe even just as you're working with clients today that, folks are thinking about kind of in this area specifically?
Yeah, I would say just the call to start taking, if you haven't already, take this seriously, right? This is whether or not you end up deciding to go with a generative AI product like Copilot, the data classification and security, I feel like is so often overlooked because people think, oh, we protect our devices, we protect our identity, that's enough. But it's not, right? Like being able to know what you have available through your data, where it's stored, how it's classified, is such an important and often overlooked piece of this. So, to Darien's point, even something like, maybe none of my customers who are all local government have secret spice recipes, right? And so they can go, oh, we have, criminal justice data. Sure, that's a big one. What about things like, employee performance reviews? What about things, that you may have that maybe aren't, super secret, but something that you don't want just being available to standard users because it's either not relevant for them or it's important they don't see it, whatever it might be. Right? All those are things that you should be thinking about. And so if you're starting to hear people want to use Copilot, you need to get this done beforehand. And if people aren't talking about Copilot yet, great, get it done beforehand anyways, right? This is something that Microsoft can help you with. We have partners who can help you with this. This is just such an important piece of the security puzzle. I think so many people just ignore. We've got people like Darien who can talk about this internally with you. We've got consulting services, we've got Unified, we've got all these people who are here to help. But start, if you haven't yet, start taking it seriously. Start really diving into this because it's a whole new world, and the last thing you want to do is be the person who, turned on Copilot and all of a sudden people started finding out stuff they shouldn't have found out. Although I will say it will not, if you type in what is Grant's salary, it will not give you that information. Right? It'll say that's not an appropriate thing to ask. I can't help you. But there are ways to ask questions that don't necessarily lead directly to that answer, right? So people are both sneaky and stupid, and they will find a way to get the information they shouldn't get one way or another. So, prepare for that. But yeah, Grant, I'll let you talk about the other stuff you wanted.
Yeah. I mean, I think the call to action, right? So we've been having, and I've been posting about a lot of, webinars really around M365 Copilot. We've got for our GCC customers, we've got an Intune Suite call coming up soon. But as again, we kind of circle back around to generative AI, M365 Copilot, and really preparing your tenant, preparing your environment to leverage these types of tools. We do have a webinar that's taking place on Wednesday, May 1st. from 1 to 2:30 Central Time. So we'll make sure to have that link here in the description, in the comments of the video. So definitely would encourage folks to attend that. But then, like you said, Ryan, yeah, leverage your Microsoft account team, leverage your partner you work with, leverage unified support, consulting services, Microsoft Fast Track, right? If you use Microsoft 365, if you use the Microsoft services, there is the Fast Track organization. That's an evergreen organization for you to work with and leverage. So there's a ton of resources, a ton of things to look at using. And again, the call to action would be to really start looking at this seriously now. So Darien, any last thoughts? Or definitely appreciate your time, you jumping on for a little bit. Anything else you have in closing?
Yeah, only other thing that I wanted to touch on really quickly, and I know most of what we've been talking about is Copilot for Microsoft 365, but we've also recently released Copilot for Security as well. For any of our commercial customers, there's a misnomer that Copilot for Security only touches on security stack within Microsoft 365, but it actually extends across the entire portfolio. So we touch on security, we touch on Purview, Intune, Entra, etc. And a lot of what we're talking about falls under this Purview bucket. So with Copilot for Security, you can go through and you can analyze and create policies like data loss prevention policies, trainable classifiers, anything you'd normally be doing in the Compliance Center, you also can do and have generative AI assist you with from a compliance perspective. So for all the commercial customers out there, it's currently available. You can spin up the security compute units straight in the Azure portal, and would highly recommend giving that a shot and seeing how that works out for you.
Great little
Like
nugget
it.
there,
Grant, I think we'll put some links to some of the stuff in the video description. I think some of the basic entry level Purview data classification stuff, and then Darien, to your last point, to some security for Copilot. That's been such an interesting product to see that grow, continue to build. I'm really excited to see what that does for organizations. I know the pilot organizations had very good things to say about it, so excited to see it get out in the wild and start solving our problems.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate the time, Darien. Great to have you on. Good to see you, Ryan. Everybody have a great rest of your day.
Thank you both.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.